Hey there, just another mediocre, uneducated white guy here to waste your time with his arrogant opinions. Um, this is kind of an impulsive decision, so I'm sure that everything will run just perfectly smooth the entire time, and that I will definitely not stumble and stutter over every idea that I try to articulate. But I also would like to say that I may or may not be high, so that could only add to the quality of the experience that I'm trying to present you with today. Mostly, I kind of like shit's so crazy. It's like, who fucking listens to Donald Trump and is like, that's it. This is the guy. This is the fucking dude. He represents me and everything I fucking believe in. It's like, fuck, man. Even like disregarding his policies, whatever you think about, whether you think the legislation he did or did not act was positive or negative. It's like, dude, who fucking I can't listen to the guy talk. I In the 4 years that he's been president, I literally have not watched more than 30 entire seconds of Trump speeches altogether because I fucking I can't do it. It's the most fucking it's ridiculous. Like I feel my brain cells dying every second that he's saying something, and it just is mind-boggling to me that this bumbling fucking buffoon was able to amass such support in the country that like they were, fucking willing to storm the Capitol and chant Mike Pence or hang Mike Pence, who is like literally 15 minutes beforehand still on their side the entire time, and after the fact was still pussyfooting around anything Trump related, still trying to, maintain his good graces or whatever. And it's like, what in the fuck is going on here, man? This shit is bananas. And it's like, I just don't understand how white men can live in America and come out the other side of their adolescence into adulthood feeling that they are being completely held back, they're oppressed, they're marginalized. There's a war on, white people, there's a war on Christianity, there's a war on capitalism, which I think there should be a war on capitalism because it's fucking the root cause of a lot of the shit going on, in my opinion. All that fucking rugged individualism shit, like for all of human history, basically up until the late 1800s, society, cultures were communal. You fucking the whole fucking it takes a village to raise a child. That is like an accurate statement based in fucking human history. It was a group effort. Everybody, besides like obviously just fucking nobles or whoever was fucking siphoning all the wealth from the fucking labor of the proletariat kind of shit. But it's like, goddamn, man, you're fucking you're the peasants. Why would you fucking be like, yes, king, please fucking let me lick your boot? It's just nonsense. And I honestly am not against overthrowing governments that require it, but to throw to overthrow what you perceive to be one authoritarian government, specifically to install your own authoritarian government, it's nonsense. It's fucking ludicrous. And all these people who are incriminating themselves, just no masks, no fucking attempt to hide their identities, live streaming at the fucking the riot, posting on Facebook talking about it. It's like they, they're LARPing or something. They expected to just like waltz in and face zero resistance and have zero repercussions for their actions, and it's ridiculous. And what's crazy to me, they're making me support cops. I fucking hate cops, but I can't deny that it feels satisfying to see, you know, these entitled bigots get their due, you know? But it's just nonsense, man. And they willingly vote against their own best interest. First of all, I'm kind of just against the capitalism because it it's an entire philosophy devoted around siphoning wealth from the masses to the fucking, top of the pyramid, bottom of the funnel kind of shit. And it's like how, like, unregulated capitalism, like libertarians who truly believe that the free market will regulate itself, are fucking delusional. And it's frustrating to me because I know some who are, I would consider, pretty fucking intelligent people, and sometimes it seems like they're right at the edge of crossing that line to being like, wait, no, that is fucking nonsense. But they've held this core belief for so long, it's like their ego is like physically holding them back, from being able to accept maybe that this shit is nonsense. It's just hard for me to see a path that capitalism could take that is not going to lead to the same eventual outcome, where it's five corporations running the entire economy and purchasing every politician that we have. Like, wealth creates wealth in this system, and there's poor people who would argue against something like capital gains tax, which 99% of the time is never going to affect them in their life. And I don't think most people understand what capital gains tax is. I'm fairly certain it's when you have so much money that your money is making money, so they tax that money that your money made. It's not like you're creating a business or, boosting the economy in any way at all. Actually, you're siphoning wealth from the economy and hoarding it, and it creates this manufactured scarcity. We have enough food to feed basically everybody. There's more empty houses in America than there are homeless people. And it's just fucking ridiculous that people think this is like the path forward. This is how we have to do it. And it's like, what even drives me more nuts is that these people who support Trump are like deathly afraid that Biden and fucking Nancy Pelosi are gonna enact swift radical communist legislation. And it's like, Jesus Christ, man, I wish Biden was like a third as cool as these guys are trying to make him out to be. Even Bernie, who most of America sees as fucking just a senile lunatic because of how left he is compared to the mainstream American politics, he's like center left in the rest of the fucking civilized world. So it's so fucking ridiculous. And this is the party who gets off on telling people facts don't care about your feelings, but then anytime you try to back them into a corner with fucking facts and evidence and proof, they just call you a fucking sheep. And it's like, dude, I haven't watched any fucking mainstream news since I left my parents' house 10 years ago. My parents still watch CNN and shit, but I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched something that was from CNN. And I specifically try to avoid reading things from Fox, CNN, MSNBC, because if I try to use that to make a point in an argument with someone who's disagreeing with me, they are likely going to just reject anything that might be relevant just sheerly on the basis that they don't like the kind of content that that media company produces for the most part. And I hate when people are like, oh, Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. We got to come together. It's like, I mean, once you storm the Capitol building intent on installing your own figurehead, you kind of throw the whole unity aspect straight in the garbage. And the thing about unity is that it you're compromising with people who are likely not having your best interests in, like look at Obamacare. It was it should have been way fucking better than it was. But the entire thing was, created by fucking health insurance companies. It's a complete conflict of interest, but yet, and see, here's where I start, get into kind of like conspiracy shit, because it really feels like they intentionally made a super shitty, semi-national healthcare system in order to be like, see, look, it's fucking garbage. It doesn't work. Why should we do it? But it's like I think universal basic income should be a thing. People don't. It's crazy how people think they're so educated about the economy, but will bitch about something like a stimulus pack. These stimulus checks. But when nobody has any money to spend, that's the entire problem. And then you get people who are like, oh, when you get your stimulus, fucking invest it or save it or whatever, But it's like, guys, the entire point of the stimulus checks is to stimulate the economy. The economy does not get stimulated if everybody is hoarding their fucking checks or, putting it into stocks where it only fucking is benefiting someone like Jeff Bezos. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, people keep bitching about the pandemic. They're like, oh, it was 2 weeks back in, last March. Now it's fucking almost a year later. It's like, yeah, because nobody fucking did anything. There's still like at least half of the people in the country just, die hard refusing to wear masks for, at any cost, getting arrested, like willing to just fucking film themselves getting arrested, feeling like they're some kind of vindicated, fucking freedom fighter. And it's like, oh, there's so many illogical inconsistencies in the beliefs that a lot of people seem to hold about how shit works. It fucking boggles my mind. Another interesting fact, I actually read this the other day, is fucking Texas, which I believe is the largest education system. The Texas public education system is the largest public education system in the country. And they have legitimately, I'm pretty sure it went to the court. They legitimately stopped, teaching course material that was focusing on evidence-based proof, critical thinking, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, how did they convince people to push this forward? And then I can't get my mind around it. And then these same people are fucking gutting public education at every single chance they get so that they can be like, oh, it fucking is garbage, private schooling all the way. So only the rich, mostly whites, have access to the private schools. And then all the fucking poor plebs have to fucking get homeschooled by their completely ignorant parents. So it's just the blind leading the blind. And that's how you get all these fucking evangelical fundamentalists following, like demons in the flesh, like fucking Kenneth Copeland. Another guy I can't understand how he fucking persuaded a whole entire community of people to fucking basically just buy him private jets. What, like, I just don't, it's so fucking ridiculous to me. Also, I looked it up real quick so people don't think I'm fucking bullshitting, but this is back in 2012. The Republican Party of Texas wrote into its 2012 platform. So it wasn't, I lied. It wasn't like legislation, but it was the goal of the Texas Republican Party to get rid of, they oppose teaching of higher order thinking skills, which values clarification, critical thinking skills and similar programs that are simply a relabeling of outcome-based education, which is mastery learning, and which focuses on behavior modification and has the purpose of challenging the student's fixed belief and undermining parental authority. They're basically against anything that would make someone a well-rounded, logical adult human being. They literally want to deprive the population of the ability to critically think, because who easier to fucking do all the work for you than some dumb idiot who thinks that working for you is some righteous call to fucking arms. It's nonsense. And so these are the same people who are fucking, it goes back and forth between them and the Democrats. And the worst part about the Democrats is they're such pussies that, every time they are in power, we're still shoved a little bit right. Like, I wouldn't even call the Democrat a center party anymore. They're right wing. They're just less right wing than Republicans. So that's another thing that just fucking blows my mind about people thinking that communism is some fucking immediate threat that looms over our country because Biden was elected. It's just nonsense. These people don't live in reality. And I want to go back to something I said earlier too about unregulated capitalism. Another, like, the only way that you could ever get me to maybe even consider the idea that laissez-faire capitalism is a superior system is if we completely reset the entire country, the economy, and it would probably have to be on a global scale even, to zero, and redistribute all the wealth evenly to every person, and then go forward from there saying, okay, now who has the ability to succeed? And you might be able to convince me that that would be a legitimate form of, living life, having humanity progress forward. Another thing I hear about unregulated capitalism, or not necessarily unregulated, but just capitalism in general, is this notion that competition is driving us forward. It's progressing us as a species. And that's a key component of capitalism that, for whatever reason, they seem to think, one, is missing from other forms of, economics in the world, but also ignores, the context of cooperation. Humanity has gotten to the point that it is over hundreds of thousands of years of cooperation. And even the classic examples that diehard capitalists like to use to bolster their point about competition, like internet or smartphones and shit, like 90% of the technology for a lot of that shit was developed by publicly funded government programs. Like, even before I was into all this shit, even before, like, I was into conspiracies and all that good shit, it was like a joke growing up that, whatever you thought the government might have technologically, it's probably a better bet to think, to assume that they're even, they have even more than what you would think, and it's like, not that is true, but that's like it's like when you talk about how if you tried to storm the White House, like laser beams would fucking shoot from a satellite and kill you on the lawn. Obviously that's not going to happen, but there's some truth to this hyperbole in the idea that the government almost always has access to the newest technological advancements much sooner than the general public, because they're almost always the ones involved in creating it. And it's the same with, like, I mentioned universal basic income earlier, and I kind of just dropped it and then said, didn't say anything about it. But that's another, that all ties in with public education, universal health care. This is all benefits the general population, which is, which is a negative effect for anybody who, the ruling class, the billionaires, the 1%, because for some reason they feel, having a few $billion short a year is going to somehow drastically affect the way that they live their lives, even though, obviously when people talk about billionaire net worth, a lot of that is tied up in assets that you'd have to liquidate in order to actually have, cash and shit. But even assuming that Jeff Bezos tomorrow went and liquidated essentially as much as he could without, causing some sort of panic collapse at Amazon, he would probably have more money than him or his kids or his grandkids would ever be able to spend without just like buying islands or some fucking ridiculous shit like that. And I'm not saying people aren't entitled to the fruits of their labor. That's actually the exact opposite of what I'm saying. People are entitled to the fruit of their labor. The problem is people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these fucking Mark Zuckerberg, they're the ones who are fucking stealing the fruits of your labor. That's what, the whole communist ideology about seizing the means of production and fucking no private property, which again people misconstrue as an absence of personal property, but that's completely different. Private property is property owned by corporations and businesses and even private entities in order to accrue wealth, to run a business. And somehow some fucking loony Ayn Rand has convinced this middle class mostly white population that these entrepreneurs and investors are the ones carrying society forward, when that's completely, you couldn't invest back in the fucking 1800s. That wasn't like a thing, and people still invented shit. The steamboat was fucking created, and then you have someone like Nikola Tesla or whatever, who essentially created and invented because that he was passionate about it, even when motherfuckers like JP Morgan and goddamn Thomas Edison financially ruin him and keep harassing him until he's basically dead. But somehow we're supposed to see capitalism as this benevolent, not government, but like economic system that allows even, the lowest of the low with enough hard work and diction to pull themselves out, up out of the hole that they were placed in before they were ever even born. I keep saying this the whole fucking time, but it's just goddamn nonsense, man. It fucking blows my mind. It is goddamn bananas. BANANAS. I just like, so much of this shit is so hard for me to comprehend because I can't even begin to put myself into the shoes of someone who sees the world in such a fantastical, unrealistic way. I just can't see how Trump is representative of some American ideology of patriotism and freedom and opportunity. He's the exact opposite. The guy's a total fucking idiot. He's a total fucking sleazebag, scammer. Has a long history of hiring small-time contractors and shit so that way he can fucking have them work for him, and then at the end of the day be like, well, I'm actually only going to pay you like a third of what we agreed upon, take it or leave it. And a lot of these places are operating on razor thin margins as it is. So they have, they don't really have the option to try and take Trump to court over it, because Trump has enough money and lawyers to, or at least did back in the day. Maybe he's dead broke now. You don't really know. But, but he had at least the money and the lawyers to tie up these small operations in court. And if they tried to fight it, they're much more likely to go bankrupt than if they just take the hit and fucking move on with their day. It's horrific. It's parasitic, and these kind of people are promoted. That's, this is the kind of system that lets these people thrive because it's ruthlessness. Anybody who has ever been worth $1 billion in the world, maybe besides Warren Buffett, because he was more or less just investing and not actively, employing wage slaves to make his money. But, Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos, Musk, all these fucking guys had to step on countless heads to achieve the wealth that they have at this point. And at some point, once you stepped on enough heads, enough of you, enough of your soul, enough of your humanity has died, where you don't even consider people as people anymore. It's more a statistic. They become a renewable resource to you, essentially. So I just don't understand how we can keep promoting this fucking system. And an interesting thought I had the other day, kind of going back to the conspiracy theory shit I mentioned earlier, I was thinking about if we assume some kind of Illuminati deep state organization exists and is involved in the puppetry of American politics, I almost wouldn't be surprised if on Biden's inauguration someone was, able to assassinate him in some way and, making Kamala the new fucking president, essentially, and then having her and her fucking coppish ways crack down incredibly hard on shit like gun laws and, travel shit, which would only serve the right even more, because they would see that as like, even if it wasn't a conspiracy, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they've convinced themselves that anything the Democrats do is negative. There's no information that you can present these guys at this point, it feels like, that would make them take a step back and be like, holy shit, that was fucking ridiculous. We were wrong. We were fucking lied to. And even like the people, like that fucking dumbass real estate agent from Texas who has been, contacted. I don't know if she was arrested, but she was definitely contacted by the FBI about her involvement at the Capitol. Her and that fucking 4chan nerd loser with the bullhorns, both of them have basically come out and said they feel betrayed and that they think Trump should pardon them, because the only reason they were there that day is because they felt that Trump essentially told them to be there to fight for the freedom of their country. So it's even more crazy when people look at that shit and they're like, well, how did Trump incite a riot? It's like, guys, life is full of nuance. Not everything is explicit. Just because Trump didn't specifically say, hey, fucking guys, go fucking storm the Capitol building, does not mean that his words and actions weren't heavily implying that that is what he hoped that his fucking followers would do. And it's like racism. A lot of people think that, if someone isn't just like dropping N-bombs at a black person, they can't be racist, or that systems can't be racist. But, they're refusing to look at it on a larger scale than just individual instances. Like, even I have, everybody has their fucking racial biases. Everybody is affected in major ways by the environment and the culture that they were surrounded by growing up. So whether you want to admit it or not, there are biases that you have been ingrained in you that if you're not actively acknowledging, you'll never grow past. And, subconscious racism is one of those things. Like when someone's walking down a street and a black guy is walking the opposite direction of them on the same block, they cross the street. Or, the people who follow black people around the store because they, all they know is that black, all they're shown on the media is that black people are thieves. It's, all of this shit ties in together, and it's so hard to get people to realize that you can't just look at one issue. Single issue voters are a cancer because they'll make allowances for some fucking pretty heinous shit as long as, abortion is a major part of the fucking platform that whoever they voted for is running on, and I fucking, god damn it. I'm sure I've just rambled fucking incoherently for 30 minutes, but that's basically just another day in the life, my friends. So I'm kind of just, I could go on for hours, but I don't really have a direction that I want to continue taking this. So maybe I'll do another or more at some other point, but likely I'll get 2 people who watch it and then feel absolutely no motivation to continue whatsoever, because without that validation, what's the reward besides clarity of mind and some fucking some stress off my chest? But whatever.